I am joined now by Brooklyn Assemblymember Robert Carroll, and I have to start with a question. Why does education seem to have been the forgotten issue in this past mayoral race?
You know, I don't know why, Marcia, because it affects all of us, even if you don't have kids. How we educate our children and making sure that they're successful students, turn them into successful adults, and we need to bring more attention to this issue, and it's one of the things I talk about every day in my role in the State Assembly.
But you've been talking about the fact that you think that there's a serious emergency in education in this state. Why?
Well, I think we've made poor public policy choices, and really the root issue is for about 40 years, we made poor choices about how we teach children to read, going towards a whole language curriculum that's has a lot on vibes and guessing and not a lot on evidence or structure. And what we need to do is implement evidence-based literacy instruction throughout our state to make sure that all students become strong, fluid, and fluent readers so that they can be successful and they can chart their own path.
So explain to our viewers what evidence-based reading is all about.
So evidence-based literacy instruction is an area of research that looks at how people actually learn to read. And actually, almost everybody learns how to read the same way. It's structured, it's sequential, and it's rooted in the 5 pillars of literacy.
But for decades, or for a long time, New York taught it sounding out words phonetically.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's not a good thing.
No, sounding out words phonetically is a good thing. That is. We went away from that, right? We went to a whole language approach that had children using context clues and guessing to get at literacy instead of breaking down the English language into the 46 sounds that you need to know to learn how to read and blend them together.
But see, we've had a situation in New York where under then School Chancellor David Banks, we moved into a new reading thing called Read NYC.
Yeah.
And there is that evidence-based reading that's going on now in New York City schools. So you want to bring that to the state?
Well, we want to bring that statewide, and it's not mission accomplished right now in New York City, right?
Why not?
Well, because, you know, we were going in the wrong direction for 40 years. We've been going in the right direction for the last 3 years. But when it comes to professional development, when it comes to fidelity in the classroom, when it comes to building the whole school day, and I'm talking the early grades, kindergarten through 3rd grade around literacy, there's still so much more that we can do. And then when we're talking statewide, you know, New York could do mandates for evidence-based literacy instruction. We could do mandates for professional development for our teachers. We can make sure that we bring true universal screening for issues like dyslexia, which I struggled with. That's what other states are doing. That's what we should be doing. And if we do that, I think we can make sure that New York suddenly, you know, does a much better job in solving the literacy crisis. You know, 50% of kids statewide read below grade level.
50%?
50%. And, you know, in New York City, it's almost 70%. And
even now, after they've changed the reading program, 70%?
Yeah, according to the National
level?
Assessment, the NAEP, 70% of students in New York City read below grade level, 50%, about 46% barely read at all. And so the literacy crisis is immense. It affects all of us. And if we want progressive education, we need to solve it. And the best place to solve that is in lower grades. And so I wish every elected official from across our state should be shouting from the rooftops that if we want to tackle the affordability crisis, if we want to tackle any of the crises facing our state, we need to make sure that all of our students are strong readers. And I'm uniquely sensitive to it because I know what it is to fail the 1st grade and the 2nd grade. I was so lucky that, you know, I had a teacher at PS 230 in Kensington, Brooklyn, pick me out of the crowd and say, he must have dyslexia. And I was lucky again that my mom and dad had the means and the opportunity to get me a neuropsychological exam that confirmed that suspicion. I got lucky again because I got to go to a school called the Gateway School and then the Windward School that changed my life. But no kid should have to be lucky to learn to read. We can solve this in New York City public schools and in state public schools throughout the state.
So won't it be very important then for the new mayor to pick a chancellor who understands this?
I think so, and I think he's going to. I've been really excited about who he's picked for his transition team. Maria Torres Springer, who I know was just here, she's phenomenal. Dean Foulahan's phenomenal. And I think that they can bring their expertise and realize that we need to build on what David Banks has done and what Eric Adams had did, which is bring evidence-based instruction. But that's not a job complete I was happy to sit on that previous mayor's literacy advisory council. I hope that we'll be continuing that work, and I have had conversations with Mayor-elect Mamdani, and I believe he's going to continue that good work, and I look forward to working with him on that.
I guess I have to ask this question. If, in fact, New York City changed its reading program, say, 3 or 4 years ago, what else needs to be done so that we can change that startling figure that you gave us of 70% of the students still read below grade level? What else do you have to do?
So what else do we have to do? So one, professional development. My mom was a reading teacher in New York City public schools. Teachers just don't overnight are able to, by osmosis, suddenly change, the way they teach. So we need to have more professional development for our teachers. We need to make sure that our principals and our superintendents are aware of these changes so that they can oversee those schools and make sure that they're implementing that evidence-based literacy instruction with fidelity. And then also, more importantly, we need to restructure our school day and early grades to focusing on literacy and prioritizing literacy as the #1 core skill in elementary schools. And then we need to make sure that children who are struggling, the 20% or so of students who are going to struggle with language-based learning disabilities like dyslexia, that we identify them and we provide them with the intensive small group instruction that they need. When I struggled with dyslexia, I ended up going to a school that specializes for kids with dyslexia for 6 years. This is not something that magically changes overnight. And so we desperately need to identify those kids early on and provide years-long interventions so that they're strong students.
But the school you went to teaches what you call the Orton-Gillingham method of teaching, which is, multi-sensory. Should New York City schools go towards that a program like that, where it's a multi-sensory approach to learning?
100% when we're talking about students who are struggling classically with dyslexia, which is a phonological awareness deficit. And that is a program, and that is a curriculum that has been proven to work for decades. And so we should be doing that. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know how to teach children how to read. What we need to do is we need to prioritize it. We need to implement statewide laws that mandate it, the way other states have done. And then we need to go to teacher colleges and professional development programs and make sure that everyday teachers are given those tools. We can't expect a young teacher who's 25 or 30 years old to do this on their own. We need, as policymakers, make sure that they have those resources at their fingertips.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back.